Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our webcast with Abstract on realisation and self-determination. In this webcast, we will explore realisation and the fulfilment of your personal and career potential. If you have any questions during the presentation, please use the online function to submit these. I hope you enjoy today's webcast, and I will now hand you over to the CEO of Abstract, Andy Nicholl.
Thanks, Heather. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I hope you're all safe and well as we continue to work our way through lockdown. Abstract is delighted to be working with Chartered Banker on this webinar. We have enjoyed a great relationship for many years with Chartered Banker, delighted to contribute to their lockdown learning series. A few weeks ago, we ran a session on forming sound judgment and decision making in unexpected times, and these certainly are unexpected times. And today, the topic that we're going to be covering is realisation and self-determination. The format will be, I'm going to give a short introduction to the session, and then David Nicholl, the founder and managing director of Abstract, will deliver the main session, which will be fast-paced, it'll be interactive, and it'll be hopefully very thought-provoking. I will return at the end to facilitate the Q&A. So just as Heather said, if you've got any questions that will come up throughout the session, just stick them in the question tab on the Bright Talk platform, and we will deal with them at the end of the session. So, what is realisation and self-determination? Well, let me take you back when you were 10 years old. Who wanted to be a pop star, or a film star, or a doctor, or a footballer, dare say even a prime minister? And did you achieve that goal? Well, I was lucky. I realised my boyhood dream of playing rugby for Scotland. It happened for me on the 18th of January 1992. But once I realised that goal, I wondered if that was it. Was that a eureka moment? And what I realised is that once I got one, I wanted to play once for Scotland. I wanted to play twice, 5 times, 10 times, 20 times. I wanted to captain Scotland, to win trophies, and then represent the British and Irish Lions. And so what it wasn't just one realisation, it was a series of realisations of achieving goals and targets that you set. But more importantly, what realisation was for me was that understanding that you've got the ability, whether that be physical or mental, but you've got that ability to achieve your target, to achieve your goals, and operate at the new level. So realisation is goal setting with purpose, and the purpose is absolutely key. So if you think about your visions, your values, your purpose, if your vision is your what you're going to achieve, and your values are the how you're going to achieve it, your purpose is your why. And the why is absolutely key. Understanding your why is very important. It gets to your inner core. And if your goals are aligned to your purpose, then you cannot fail. And so to realise any target, to realise any goal, to have that realisation, you need that self-determination. And that self-determination is that inner drive to achieve that goal, that target, whether it's to get a new position, to have a career change, to work in a new country, whatever it is, there's going to be bumps in the road. And having determination will keep you on track. It will keep you on the direction that you're trying to get to. And COVID-19 has been a great example for all of us. Some of you, I'm sure, would have had really clear targets and goals that you're going to achieve personally and professionally in the year of 2020, and they've probably had to take a back seat because of what we're faced with. Abstract, 12 weeks ago, we were a face-to-face training and development company, and so our business model was massively challenged. And so we had to convert to digital, and here we are 12 weeks on, running a webinar like we are here today. So it was our determination to not just sit back and wait, to go out there and to make that change was what's allowed us to be here today. So that's just a positioning piece for you for realisation and self-determination. I'll now hand over to, as I say, the founder and MD of Abstract, David Nicholl, to take you through the session.
Great, thank you, Andy, and good afternoon to everyone. As Andy alluded to, realisation is not a eureka moment. It's a series of moments. But the more we are aware, the more we can control. So it wasn't that long ago that most people thought the world was flat. In fact, some people still do. There may be one or two of us here today on the call who are members of the Flat Earth Society. I really like that outfit. They're great. But, you know, once you discover the world is round, it then gives you other problems to solve. It then you have another realization moment around, well, what do we do with that? How does that work in terms of navigation, etc.? So realization is a series of discovery, whether it's a discovery about yourself or about your career. This event today is about both your career and you as an individual. Albert Szent-Györgyi, who was an Hungarian philosopher and scientist, said that discovery is seeing what everyone else has seen, but thinking what no one else has yet thought. So when you go back to your business in an hour's time, everything's going to look the same. You're going to have the same calendar, the same agenda. You're going to have the same people hitting your Zoom calls or Microsoft Teams calls. But we want you to start thinking what you've not yet thought. We want you to look at the world slightly differently. Is it flat? No, maybe not. Maybe it's round. So we want you to start thinking a little bit differently, and that's our challenge today. So today's objectives, what we'd like to achieve today is to think about yourself in a way you've not yet thought, and that's you and your career. Consciously evoke the power of choice when you most need it. I'm going to come back to that a lot today because it's that power of choice that is absolutely key. And then to put yourself in control with a clear focus upon your future. Now, making choice is one thing, but then controlling that choice through to fruition as you achieve one realization and on to the next is absolutely essential. So there are objectives today. Hopefully we'll achieve them by the time we get to 1 o'clock. So realization and self-determination. The Oxford English Dictionary would tell us that realization is coming to understand something clearly and distinctly. It's that eureka moment. It's that time when you say, I've been on this call now, or I've been on this project now for 3 months. I didn't get it up till now. I'm really starting to understand it. Or, you know, I can now really understand what my trajectory is starting to look like. And that's really, really important because it's not a one eureka moment. It might take a few moves. And that's what I want to share with you today. So we're going to start with the nature-nurture debate because it's a beautiful synopsis. And whether you're nature or nurture, we'll have a look in a moment. But the nature debate would suggest first and foremost that the argument is that the brain has evolved to process certain types of information in certain ways, which enables us to thrive better only in certain environments. So it's suggesting that we are predisposed with certain things that have been passed down through generations over time that mean we're either going to be amazing in certain situations, and guess what, if we don't hit that environment or that circumstance or that situation, we may have missed it completely. We may have missed our vocation. So that's the nature argument. And of course, if we do hit our vocation, then we can be absolutely amazing in that environment. I think at the same time, the nurture argument would suggest that the brain is a blank canvas and therefore can be educated and developed to thrive in any environment. So we're saying that we're like a sponge. The nurture is like a sponge. Give us enough training, give us enough development, enough qualifications, what it is, expose us to that environment for long enough, and we'll be brilliant in any environment. So they both have their place, and scientists for years have been debating this. So I just want you to have a look now. I want to know online, where are we leaning towards as a team? Are we leaning more towards nature or nurture? So we're going to launch a poll for a moment, and we're going to see if we can. Okay, so hopefully you'll be able to see that. So it doesn't matter if you're 50-50, choose 51-49. Tell me which way you are heading slightly towards. Okay, so
So in the votes from the audience, there should be a question up here. Question 1, are you leaning towards? Is it nature or nurture? If you can submit that, then we'll continue.
Thank you, Andy. Okay. Okay, just wait for some more to submit.
Yeah, we've got nine votes in, David, at the moment, and 77% are nurture and 22% are nature. It's moved up to 12 votes. Let's just give it a few more minutes, David, just to see if we get any more responses. But overwhelming majority think are leaning towards nurture rather than nature. So we've stuck at 12, so I think we'll just leave it at that, David. We've gone up to 14, and it's 85%, David, are nurture, and 14% are nature.
Great. Okay, so I'm gonna stop the votes there then at this point. So there you go, and thank you very much. So it's probably what we expected, because scientists today have shifted their thought, because if you go back 50 years, they were probably more inclined towards nature than nurture. And I think we've learned more about the brain and ourselves in the last 50 years than we have about most things. And the nurture argument is probably winning out at the moment. So 85%, not surprised. So the one thing, though, whether you are nature or nurture, this is the key, and it's choice. It's whether you are nature or nurture. And of course, the nature probably has a more direct result when we're talking about genetics. So if I'm just 5 foot tall, I may not want to go into the Olympics as a high jumper. You know, so you can expose me to any environment, but you know, just being that tall may be an inhibitor. But at some point, you're going to have to make some choices. And we believe that those choices are both conscious and unconscious choice. Whether the choice to come on this webinar today, for most of you, was probably a conscious choice. For some of you, your line manager might have said, you need to go on this. And that's an unconscious choice. It's somebody else taking the reins. So I want to take a moment and look at choice, because choice is the thing that separates us from the animal kingdom. I want to just tell you a story for a moment about two brothers. And this really captures the nature-nurture debate for me. And when I was doing my master's degree in social psychology and behavior studies, it was really interesting that there would be a lot of study around identical twins. And the reason being is because they're born identical. However, identical twins aren't truly identical. They have different fingerprints. They'll have a different DNA in its total makeup. But they are generally, you know, the same person. And for some identical twins, they can be separated miles apart, yet they can feel the same things at the same time, and others don't. And it's really interesting that this study went into great depth. But the story I want to tell you is about two brothers. And part of our thesis was to watch these videos on identical twins. And the two brothers, I don't know if anybody's ever seen the BBC 7 Up series. It was almost a play on that, where they'd been filming identical twins for years, and 7 years is a great cyclical period in which to view the development of ourselves. And these two boys were born into a very poor environment into the northeast of England. They were born into a council estate, and you see them at the age of 7 on video. You have a cameraman and you have a narrator talking to them. And both boys look pretty similar. They sound pretty similar. And mother and father's present. Father's a bit of a fighter. He's been in and out of prison for petty theft, and he's asking the narrator if he wants to deal in some stolen goods. Always good on camera. And and the boys have got no shoes or socks on. They're running around. There's broken glass on the floor, but they tend not to cut their feet. It's quite incredible. And then you see these boys again at the age of 14, and instantly you notice that the boys have started to drift apart. One of the boys is quite aggressive. He kicks the cameraman at the bottom. He puts his fingers up to the narrator, and he's quite aggressive in his demeanour. The other boy is more passive. He's more considerate in his answers. He's hesitating before he sort of engages back with the narrator. And then you see them again at the age of 21, and they really have changed now. They're living 300 miles apart. One of the boys is still on the council estate. The other boy has moved to the Midlands, and he met a girl at a music festival, and he's now moved in with her. The boy on the council estate has just finished juvenile detention for petty theft, and he's a bit of a fighter. He's got a couple of teeth missing, and he's boasting about all the relationships he's had with the ladies on the estate, and the number of children he may have fathered. And in contrast, the other boy is working in a factory. It's a packing factory in Birmingham, and he's got a steady job and he's earning a steady wage. And then you see them again at the age of 28, and they have really, really changed. They are now poles apart. And one of the boys is living 3 doors down from where you first saw him at the age of 7. There are burnt out cars in the background. There's still broken glass on the floor. He's been in and out of prison for Class A drugs, and he's a single man now, and he's boasting about not paying maintenance to the CSA or of equivalent. And the other boy is now married. He's got 2 small children of their own. I say the other boy, these now men rapidly approaching 30. He's got 2 small children of his own, and he's now the production manager of this company. He's now been moved up into this company as a young man, earning his crust and making his way. But that's not really the story. The story is how it culminates. The story is when 300 miles apart and at different times, the narrator finishes the program by asking them the same question. He says, and finally, why do you think you turned out like you did? And amazingly, 300 miles apart and at different times, they both gave exactly the same answer. They both said, what do you expect with a father like mine? Now that was really insightful, because one had decided to blame his father for the person he had become, and the other one had used it as motivation to become something else. And we go away, we debate it, we go in our rooms, we come back, we discuss it, we give our prognosis and thesis and all our ideas, and they wind the film on and they show us some footage they haven't showed us yet. And it's of the guy who made it to Birmingham and made it good. And they asked him, they said, when did you decide that this wasn't for you? And he said, I think I always knew this wasn't for me, but he said the seminal moment was when he went to play football and there was no footballs to play with. They'd all been punctured. Nobody had a ball. He walked 4 miles to a park where better well-off boys were playing football with a proper ball. So he joined in, and eventually he made friends, and he gave them a fictitious address, and he went back and played football with them. But one day they went to call for him, and he wasn't there. He didn't live there. They told him they'd never heard of him. So when he went back to play football, they disowned him and beat him up. The narrator then asked him, what did he do? He said, I went back. And he said, and they picked on me. And then they said, what did you do then? He said, I went back again. And he said, eventually I watched the game for 2 or 3 games, and then eventually they let me join in again. And they understood, and they got to know me, who I was. And he was taken under the wing of some of the parents, and he went back to the estate, you know, to sleep. And it was quite interesting that whether it's conscious or unconscious choice, we still make a choice. And even the decision not to make a decision is a decision. So we are always making choices, whether it's conscious or unconscious. So really powerful. But what we've also discovered in abstract is that we actually apply more unconscious choice in the first half of our life, and we then apply more conscious choice in the second half of our life. So for example, if we think about our early years, there's an old adage that says you can choose your friends, but not your family. So you didn't choose which family you were born in. You didn't choose the extent of that family, whether it was a small family or a big family. Largely, it was made for you, but you adapted and you chose other options within the family. You didn't choose which home you were born into or the environment you were born into, but it was chosen for you. And when you left home for the first time, you possibly chose a home that was close to home or close to where you were at that time, but that wasn't going to be the home that you were going to reside in for the rest of your life. So we are making unconscious choices for the first half of our life. Our education, you probably didn't choose the first school you went to, or the international school abroad where your parents took you, or wherever you may have ended up. And that further education may have been put on the table for some, or may have not been available for others. So it was really important that we understand that our unconscious thoughts drive our early years. And then when it comes to careers, in financial services particularly, a lot of people in the past fell into financial services. I know I was one of them. With a clinical psychology degree, I went and joined the Prudential and then moved on to Aviva and Royal Bank of Scotland Group. I didn't choose that career. I sort of fell into it to avoid the NHS route, which seems pretty selfish in today's COVID-19 world. So, you know, our careers will have been pretty much set out for us at some point during the early years. But what's really important is that if that's our first half of our year where we're starting to become more conscious about our choices, but we're still largely unconscious, we need to think about our H2. And if we think the first half of our years is, let's just say it's up to 35, and the second half of our years are 35 onwards, from the age of 35, we start losing our ego self-separation. We start moving into, it's not all about me. It's actually more about my family. It's my children. It's about my peers. It's about what we can do for others. It's about the higher purpose. It's about what the business is trying to achieve and where's my career going? You know, do I really, is this for me? Yes. In that case, I can be much better than I really am. I probably just haven't been choosing consciously the right opportunities. We then also get into adult maturity, where we are able to think stronger and harder for ourselves and lose that sort of line of command and control from our parents and peers. We also then find meaning. This is where we find meaning and purpose as to why we're here, what are we doing here, how am I adding value to this business? You know, am I in the right company? Is this company supporting me? Am I doing everything I can for this company? Can I be even better than I'm being at the moment? Have I found my self-actualization? Am I in the right part of the company? Am I heading towards the right trajectory? Do I have the right development plans? Have I done enough self-promotion? Have I engaged with organizational politics? Have I got enough professional qualifications? All these things will be coming in to you in H2. And I appreciate some of you on this call may not even be in H2 yet. Some of you will be. So H1 and H2 defines whether we're conscious or unconscious. And Mark Twain said that the two most important days in your life are the day you were born and the day you find out why. And it's that purpose. And it's not a eureka moment, it's a series of moments. And for me, I was having those moments from when I started with the Prudential and I moved to Aviva, and then I moved to the Royal Bank of Scotland Group as head of resource and values. And I was having those moments. Why am I here? Am I making a difference? And one of the things that was always driving my purpose was I wanted to help people develop. That was always part of my purpose, helping people to be better than they could be themselves. That was always part of what I wanted to do. And so wherever I was, I made that happen. So I'm going to come to the second poll for a moment. I would like you to have a look at this questionnaire. There's only 10 questions. It shouldn't take you long. There's an index across the top, 10 always, down to 0 never. So how often do you think about what's important to you? If it's often, it's 7.5. If it's rarely, it's 2.5. So if you could score on your paper and then total them up, and then what we will do is we will get you to put your scores in and we'll have a look whereabouts we are as a team. Okay, so take a few moments for that. Should be about halfway through. Just give you another minute. Okay. So everybody done? I know it's a rhetorical question. So take your score. And you should be able to do this now. So wherever your score was within that, please let me know.
I think the votes are coming in, David, now, so people are beginning to put it into whichever category. So we've had 4 votes coming in so far, so we'll just let the others. We had 14 votes in the first one, so let's see if we get similar numbers this time. Okay, so we've got 7 votes back at the moment, so we'll just we'll give it a second or two just to wait for some others to come in.
Yeah. Okay. Shall we go with that then, Andy?
Yeah, so we're at 11 votes, so 18% have come in with a score between 25 and 49. 72% have come in between 50 and 74, and 9% have come in at more than 75, but less than 100.
Fantastic, thank you. Well, that's a brilliant score, I have to say. That's fantastic. To have 75% of you now, there's 12 come in now, to have 75%, 3/4 that are sitting somewhere between 50 and 74 is incredible. 16%, 25 to 49, and 75 plus 8%. Okay, that's really, really interesting. Thank you so much for that. I'm going to stop the voting now. Okay, thank you. And then, what does that mean? So, in essence, this means how focused are you? And it's saying that 0 to 24 means that you probably lack a bit of purpose. And there was nobody on the score today that, or on the webinar today that scored that. 25 to 49 says you're displaying good purpose. So 15% of you now, it's going up, it's continuing. So 15% are around that. So you're displaying good purpose. But what that means is that you're probably intermittent. You've got purpose at times, and you're probably lacking purpose at times. You're coming in and out of maintaining control of that focus. And then 50 to 74 displays strong purpose. And that would say it's pretty much there most of the time. And so that is superb. To have that amount of people on the call, well done. And then you've got about 15% now who are target focused. These are your core people. These are your career monsters. These are the guys that are going out to get what they want. They know what they want. They know where they are now. They know what they've got to do to get it, and they know where they want to be. I'm pleased there was nobody at 100%, only because, like everything, an overplayed strength can be a weakness. And unless you are going in the Olympics for the next 4 years, I wouldn't expect you to be a score 100. These people are target obsessed, and sometimes it can be at the sacrifice of other things. So I think we've got a really good round of scores there. So thank you for your participation. I just want to take you through this. And this was something I discovered some years ago. And for me, this was a realization in a series of realizations. And this is Carl Jung's theory. Carl Jung, eminent psychologist. And Carl Jung talks about our journey in life. And he speaks about our early years. And 0 to 7 are probably our most formidable years. It is these years that make us the people we are. He claims by the age of 7, we are cooked, we are done, we are formed, our values are complete. And everything we've learned in those 7 years will then go on to shape the rest of our lives. So if any of you have still got children under the age of 7, there's hope yet. So he also talks about we are born with just 2 fears, the fear of falling and the fear of loud noises. But throughout the rest of our lifetime, we then start to shape our desires and fears based on what we formed in our early years, whether it was a good environment, bad environment, whether it was a driven environment, whether it was a lazy environment, etc., etc. So our first early years are really important. And then our learning years are equally as important, because during our learning years, we then get to look for references and experiences that relate back to our early years. So everything that we stand for, we try and find in our learning years. Even if we learn other stuff that doesn't fit our values, we tend to overlook them. We tend to park them and maybe come back to them because they don't fit. But this piece here was a real realization for me. Carl Jung talks about
we just seem to have lost David for a second there. Just bear with me. David, are you still with us? Okay, folks, just bear with us if you. We just seem to have a few technical issues here. Heather, I don't know if you're able to help in any way.
Hi, yeah, I'm still here. It looks like he's dropped off.
Yeah, I'll just try and get him back. So bear with us, everyone. Just bear with us. We're just trying to sort the technical problem that we've just faced with here. So we'll try and get David back as soon as possible.
I'm here.
Right.
I'm here.
Well done, David.
Thank you. I really don't know what happened. Just everything just collapsed. So we're back in. So sorry about that. The survival years are really important. And I was saying that for some people, their survival years continue through all the way to retirement, you know, and survival years are the years where you get a job, you get a house, you take on debt, you buy a car, you have a family, suddenly you're burdened with responsibilities you never had before in your life. And so these survival years, we tend to look back on and go, I really can't remember them very well. I don't know where they went. They were part of your early career as well, where you think, do you know what, I could have been so much better in my career had I paid more attention. But you can't, because you're involved in just about everything in those survival years. And then Young talks about your development years later on, 36 to 50. Your development years, this is where your H2 really kicks in, where you start to think about your ego self-separation. It's about the good of the company. It's about the good of your career. It's your self-purpose. It's where you start getting extracurricular development and qualification for you to be better. That might be in your career and outside your career. For some people, it's where they start to change careers. For me personally, at the start of those development years, it was where we set up Abstract. And somewhere in my survival years, I realized that I'd failed to do something. So they're your development years. And then you have your comfortable years where, you know, this is where we start accumulating wealth and actually being really good at what we do. And it takes less effort these days to be brilliant in our careers. And we start getting on boards of NED, non-exec directorships and stuff like that. And then we get 65 plus, and they're our retirement years, and that's where we look back at the journey and say, whew, that was cool, or not, depending on where you've got to. But this is the key for me. Carl Jung talks about missing gaps from our survival years yearn to be fulfilled within our development years. And that is critical, because if I share, you know, around the age of 35, you know, I got to a place where something was missing. My survival years were now yearning to be fulfilled. There was something. My entrepreneurship wasn't being fulfilled. I wasn't helping people as much as I wanted to help people. So my wife and I threw in our corporate pensions and we set up Abstract. And setting up Abstract, we set our purpose. Our purpose was to change people's lives through learning and development. And that's what we've been doing ever since. And it hasn't been an easy ride. It's been tough. But, you know, at some point, you will have a yearning, whether it's yet to come or whether you're already in your development years looking back. It's at this point you can accelerate your career beyond belief. You can accelerate your career amazingly at this point. So what I want you to think about for a moment, I would like you to individually assess what your gaps were or might be if you're not there yet from your survival years. So what's missing within your career? What are they professional qualifications?